This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody. Billy Embody. 1, 2, 3, let me go.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I am Billy Embody. Thanks for listening. We've got a busy show for you guys today. As always, it seems like with this day and age of recruiting, things are happening fast. So we've got a lot to talk about as SMU is working on flipping a 4-star prospect from TCU. But first, we've got to remind you guys that we are brought to you by StatusJet, statusjet.com. Reach out to David Henry and his team and start planning your game day experience for the fall with StatusJet. Big jet, small jet. Could even take a helicopter if you wanted to, depending on where you go, and they can hook that up to make the commute easier if there's traffic. They can do all sorts of things because they have that attention to detail that they bring to the table that you'd expect for a private jet charter company. When you use the code PonyUpACC, that gets you a discount on a round trip flight. Really, really good stuff there for you guys to get ready for game day with StatusJet. They can fly you all over the country. And of course, reach out to them for your summer travel as well. 4th of July is coming up. Plenty of good destinations to choose from if you want to go somewhere tropical for the 4th. So reach out to StatusJet today and talk with them about your options when it comes to your private jet charter experience. On the heels of Keelan Russell flipping to Alabama from SMU, the Mustangs didn't waste a lot of time turning up the heat, trying to flip one of the top quarterbacks in the country, and a name that SMU fans are really familiar with if you've followed this 2025 cycle for quite some time, and that is Ty Hawkins, the 4-star quarterback who committed to TCU last summer in June. He made his pledge to go play for Sonny Dykes and the Horned Frogs, and this is one that is really interesting from the pure standpoint of his sister competed in athletics at track and field at SMU, graduated, had a really good experience. But at the end of the day, when Ty Hawkins was going through this recruiting process and making an early decision, SMU wasn't in the power conference ranks. They weren't in the ACC. They were on the verge of maybe getting into the Pac-12, but we all know how that went. So he pledged to play for the Horned Frogs and has kept his commitment to Sonny Dykes and that staff for quite some time now, obviously approaching a year to when he committed. But SMU hosted him for an official visit this week. It began on Monday. It ended Wednesday mid-morning or so as Ty and his family headed back to San Antonio. And so SMU now awaits a decision from Ty Hawkins. If I'm following quarterback tea leaves here, I don't think he drags this out either way. I think if he wants to stick with TCU, he's going to want to be locked in recruiting for the Horned Frogs when he's expected to make his official visit June 21st weekend. And if he flips to SMU, he's going to want to be over with it, get it over with, get it done with, as he will go through the summer and then start dialing up some of these receivers, working on maybe some other prospects that he really knows well and getting to work in that respect. When it comes to my feeling on his recruitment and if SMU will flip him, right now I haven't heard that. I haven't heard that he's made a decision to flip. I haven't heard that he's made a firm decision either way. So that does leave a little bit, at least as of the time of this recording, part of the reason why I was waiting a little bit. Maybe we would get word either way that he's sticking with the Frogs or flipping to SMU, or you know what, he's going to get his Oregon visit lined up and really take the next step in having this kind of open recruitment. He was somewhat non-committal when talking with On3's Chad Simmons about his commitment in a way. He said it's going to be really hard to pull me away, but also he's doing his due diligence on SMU and Oregon. And so the Mustangs got the first crack at him in terms of an official visit, but he has been committed to TCU for quite some time. Still, the circumstances around SMU and what they can offer have changed. Right around the time Ty Hawkins committed, that was when SMU started turning up the heat on Keelan Russell. They end up getting his commitment. TCU had Hawkins for a while. But now you fast forward and things have changed. So that is why Ty Hawkins is giving SMU the chance to make their pitch now. They're in a different conference. They're in a different world when he originally made his first commitment. And so he's giving them their shot. And I think for SMU, that's all you can ask for at this point. You want to flip him. You want to get a top 100 prospect on board or back on board at the quarterback position, as you had Keelan Russell, another top 100 prospect. But it's not a given. TCU is going to fight tooth and nail. They're going to jump on the phone, I'm sure. Ty has a really interesting schedule over the next few days. He does have his sister's graduation in California. He has Elite 11 finals in California as well. And then he does have that TCU official visit on the books. If he does make a decision soon and flips, I don't see him obviously taking that official visit. But this is just total wait and see mode at this point for SMU when it comes to Ty Hawkins. SMU really hasn't gone away recruiting Ty. And just to give you a little bit of a backstory here, we all know that Keelan Russell throughout the spring was talking to other programs. He was talking to Texas. He was talking to Texas A&M. He was talking to Ole Miss, Florida. He took other visits. And obviously Alabama ended up turning up the heat and getting him to flip. And that's why Derek King, SMU's quarterbacks coach, continued to recruit other quarterbacks. When I was asked about this on the board, whether it was May, whether it was April, I always said SMU hasn't offered another quarterback for a reason. Granted, Keelan Russell was committed. They weren't going to do that and really just throw in the towel. They wanted to keep Keelan Russell, but Ty Hawkins has been talking to SMU for months now. So this isn't something that came out of nowhere. They weren't having to start up and try to plan an official visit and see if he was even interested. They knew he would be interested in taking this visit. Once Keelan Russell formally flipped, they were able to go ahead and get it scheduled. And this was about the only time that it worked. So they were able to get him to come through with his mom. His mom took off work to be at SMU. So there is, I think, genuine interest, and it's a school he's familiar with. He visited multiple times. He's been around the program a lot and before his commitment. And then, of course, with his older sister having gone to SMU, he had been to campus multiple times. I think when Ty and I first talked, I think he said he was about 9 years old when he first stepped foot on SMU's campus. So he is familiar with the Hilltop, and we'll see now if SMU's pitch and overall plan for him was good enough to get that flip done. And it's a waiting game at this point. So I'm not here to tell you it's going to happen. I'm not here to tell you it is not happening either, because I don't know. I tried to talk to Ty and so far haven't been able to get in touch with him just yet, but he did just get back from San Antonio or from Dallas and needs to pack and get on his next round of travel coming up. So we will continue to track Ty Hawkins and see where SMU can go in terms of that recruitment. And they are recruiting other quarterbacks. They are talking with them. They are evaluating other quarterbacks still. They have had some quarterbacks on campus to throw, and we'll see what happens when it comes to that process if Ty Hawkins doesn't flip to SMU, and then they can go some of those different routes, which are very much on the table. That's why they're bringing in different players to throw and look at. And we broke down some options for SMU at ontheponyexpress.com. You can subscribe for just $1 for your first 2 months using code SMU1. That's SMU, the number 1. So we broke down the quarterback options, some guys that have offers that are on the table, some guys that don't have offers that could earn offers. And there will be more to track, again, if Ty Hawkins doesn't make the call to Rhett Lashlee and flips. So this is where sometimes you have a long-term commitment and you have just been that guy for a program. And quarterbacks are so, I think, usually ingrained in the future plans for a coaching staff that they are an extension of the coaching staff when it comes to these recruiting classes. And so Ty's been in that boat for a year. And look, Sonny Dykes, he helped Rhett Lashlee recruit Preston Stone. He's been at the helm of some big quarterback lands for TCU. He knows how to play the game. And Rhett Lashlee is no stranger to big game hunting in the quarterback world either, having been at multiple Power 5 stops. Again, he was critical when it came to Preston Stone sticking with SMU. He told Preston to stick once he left to be the Miami offensive coordinator. So this is a good old-fashioned recruiting battle at this point. I still don't think it drags on very, very long, but SMU obviously had a lot to show Ty Hawkins on his visit when it comes to the new end zone complex that he's certainly not seen since he did commit to TCU back in June of 2023. But you also have the NIL space that SMU can play in. You have the plan offensively for him, and you have just the new landscape of this coaching staff. I mean, Johnny Brewer was the quarterback's coach back when SMU first started recruiting Ty Hawkins. So to get face-to-face, to start that process is really something that SMU obviously wanted to do, and they were able to do that. And so we'll see how the dust settles when it comes to Ty Hawkins. But that was the news that dominated the first 2 days of the week at ontheponyexpress.com. So we'll see what happens with Ty Hawkins. SMU isn't done, though, hosting official visitors this week, and we'll go back to the weekend on the official visit weekend to kind of run that down for you guys as well. But the Mustangs did host 2 defensive line targets, which are critical to the future of the program, trying to address that defensive line and really get them in a strong position moving forward from the high school ranks. SMU's done a really stellar job in the transfer portal, but this week to kick it off was about 2 uncommitted defensive linemen. One, Tyrone Winslow, big defensive lineman out of Louisiana, who did take his SMU official visit. And talking with the source, he's all of that 6'5". Obviously, I got to get him a picture there, but he is kind of this almost mystery recruit. He keeps it really close to the vest. He's always done that throughout his recruitment with SMU, Houston, Missouri, some other programs from the group of 5 ranks in there. But from talking with sources, he's all of that 6'5". He is a big man in the middle of that defensive line, and SMU's hoping to get him on board. And then you have Dylan Battle, a more well-known name in the defensive line world. SMU's been on him for quite some time. They've hosted him multiple times for official visits or for unofficial visits. But Dylan Battle's an interesting one. I don't know if we see him end up at SMU. And there were moments throughout his recruitment that he was close to SMU, and he's extended it out. He's taken other visits. And I just get the sense that maybe we don't see this come together like it maybe was potentially going to earlier this cycle. I can tell you that at one point this cycle, SMU was pretty much expecting him to jump in the boat. That didn't happen. He picked up some bigger offers, but again, circled back to take an SMU official visit, took a TCU official visit last weekend, took a LSU official visit. I don't think he's a take right now for LSU. So it'll be interesting to see this recruitment and see where it goes as his recruitment will still play out. He's got other official visits planned for this summer. I believe he goes to Arkansas next and then Cal. So those are 2 big defensive linemen that were on campus for SMU this past weekend, to kick off this week. And as of now, what's next for SMU? They're going to have a big 7-on-7 tournament on Friday. I don't believe as of now there are going to be any official visitors coming in this weekend. So that gives the staff Father's Day weekend off. And that's one thing that Rhett Lashlee's done a really nice job of, is really stacking up this first half of the month of June and getting it to a point where this coaching staff could very well know where they stand with their top targets. They know where they stand with a lot of their top prospects and top commits that they have. And then they can go from there, when the first half of the month is over, and really get a feel for, okay, we're going to have so-and-so commit in a couple of weeks. A lot of these prospects like to do videos or like to do announcements or all sorts of different things to announce those decisions. But as of now, SMU sitting with 11 commitments in the class of 2025. And so now it's kind of that wait and see mode for a lot of this. Obviously, Ty Hawkins was in. That's the big story. They're still working very hard there. But a lot of it is laying the groundwork with these official visits and then seeing either the fruits of those labors come to fruition, or saying, okay, we missed at this position. We know we're either going to have to really watch seniors in a big way and watch them and evaluate them and see if there's somebody that's worth taking, or we can go in a different direction here and try to flip someone or just save the spot for the transfer portal. So that's where SMU's at. But I can tell you this, two of SMU's commitments that were on campus this past weekend that SMU is sitting in a good spot to hold on to are two of the guys that I think are underrated in this class. Jalen Shivers, the defensive end, going to play that Elijah Roberts role in Scott Simon's defense, who was in on his official visit out of the Peach State. And then Cameron Cullens, Cam, who swung back through the Hilltop for his official visit. And SMU has done a really nice job here on both of these guys, making them a priority, showing them why they're at positions of need. There's playing time to be had. And both of them are really high upside guys. I think physically both really stand out, especially Cam being a really good tester and might not be that 6'4", but he's got plus length. And then Jalen Shivers really physically probably looks similar to Elijah Roberts coming out of high school. Elijah, remember, last spring, way before his breakout season in the AAC, he was, a little trim. He was bouncing between the bandit spot in SMU's defense and playing that strong side defensive end. And then in the summer, he went to work and came back looking like the freak and got into that strong side defensive end spot. Jalen Shivers kind of has a similar body. You almost look at him and say, okay, he can maybe play bandit, but as he grows older and can develop, he can probably step in to that strong side defensive end spot, which is where SMU is recruiting him at. So both have told me they're not taking any more official visits. Cam was supposed to be at Georgia Tech this coming weekend, but he shut that down and told me he is 1,000% locked in, not 100, 1,000% locked in. So recruiting is strange, but of course, we'll see if that changes. But as of now, SMU sitting in a good spot with both prospects coming off official visit weekends. SMU also had multiple other prospects on campus, but let's talk about Flip Watch, because I know that's the headline. I know that's the attention-grabbing thumbnail that we got there on the YouTube channel, and that is because SMU did see a prospect flip elsewhere, but they're also fending off some other challengers for one or two of their other top commitments. So we got to talk about that a little bit. Let's lead off with the bad news. One that went through: Xavier Johnson out of Richland High, committed to SMU on his official visit. May 17th, kicked it off, did the Friday night commitment, signed the rock, did all the things. We were expecting him to commit during that official visit, and all of a sudden backed off his commitment to the Mustangs and flipped just this week to Memphis. A really kind of strange recruitment. Haven't really been able to nail down what exactly happened there, but clearly some sort of change, and he goes elsewhere. And sometimes that is recruiting. That is just kind of how strange it can be when you have a guy who was, basically ready to commit before he even got to SMU for his official visit, and ends up, not even a month later decommitting and going elsewhere. So that is probably a little bit of what can happen at times when you get the official visit, set up so early in May. But this was just a weird one. He was, made no bones about it that SMU was, the spot for him going into that weekend. But Memphis gets it done. Another prospect that is on Flip Watch in a sense, but I did drop some notes at ontheponyexpress.com about him, is Tyron Polley. TCU hosted him for an official visit this past weekend. They were able to get him in Fort Worth, trying to get a Duncanville standout over to play for the Horned Frogs. But as of now, as of this recording, we haven't seen a flip go through. We'll be continuing to obviously keep an eye on it, because sometimes when you get to this stage where you start hearing about things like this, that is where it gets really dicey. And trying to track this one is going to be interesting, because obviously the Frogs would have liked to have keep it a little bit more on the down low. And then word kind of got out that he was, in fact, in Fort Worth. And SMU was able to jump on the phone with him and say, hey, what's going on? Kind of walk us through this. And as of now, we haven't seen a flip go through. So Scott Simons, SMU's defensive coordinator and safeties coach, working hard to keep Tyron Polley in the boat with the Mustangs. And so far, that is the case. Now, things happen fast in recruiting, as we just talked about with Xavier Johnson, but we are keeping a close eye on this one. But as of now, just talking with different sources, now it has gone from maybe a little bit more of a wait and see before thinking it is an auto flip. So we'll see how Tyron handles it and if that stays the case. But that would be good news for SMU to be able to fend off the Horned Frogs for Tyron Polley. I mean, SMU has 4 safety commits. That was maybe part of the pitch for TCU to say, look, they took 4 guys, come to our class and go from there, because the Frogs don't have, I was looking at 2024, there's 25. The Frogs do not have a safety commitment as of right now in that class, so they can obviously offer that up a little bit. But you look at how SMU's been able to use guys like Tyron Polley. I mean, you think about having a shorter safety in a sense, like an Ahmad Moses, Jonathan McGill, and the playing time is there. And Tyron Polley has been around SMU a bunch. And sometimes recruiting, you can get these opportunities, these little windows, and these young kids are impressionable. And that's not to say that TCU can't do a good job recruiting him and getting him to think long and hard about this decision, because it is a big one. And kudos to them for getting him on campus and getting him to the point where it was almost looking like he was gonna flip. But SMU fought back. They've held this commitment for a long time now, and there's a clear need and opportunity for SMU when it comes to keeping Tyron Polley on board. Another prospect that has been taking a couple other visits, Zay Gentry did take an official visit to Wisconsin and then did go to camp at Kentucky as well. But he's expected back on campus on Friday. SMU is going to host him and his high school for the 7-on-7 tournament. So that will be something to watch. And I think as the month of June gets closer to coming to a close, that's good news for SMU. You landed Zay Gentry. You want to be able to keep him in the boat, and that is something that we're watching closely, though, because he did end up taking that official visit to Wisconsin and did go and camped at Kentucky, but I didn't see anything that would really draw some attention in terms of potential flip. But again, we'll keep an eye on it here to see what happens with Zay Gentry. But back on track with official visitors, SMU did host Kobe Foreman, one of their top cornerbacks, on their recruiting board for an official visit this past weekend. This visit was a long time coming when it came to SMU hosting Kobe Foreman. He is one of the guys that has been on the board for Ricky Hundley for so long now. And SMU would love to get him across the finish line and get him in the boat. And I think they still sit in a good spot, but a lot of these prospects do want to take visits. And so, like I said earlier in the podcast, when it comes to their plan and do they want to do an announcement? Do they want to do a video? Things like that. Sometimes that can take time. And honestly, as we saw with Xavier Johnson, maybe letting those guys sit on their decision a little bit longer and decide what they're going to do. And, okay, I'm going to make the video and this is where I truly want to be. Maybe that's the move, because Xavier Johnson thought about it, felt good about it going into his official visit and did it night one, but hasn't, he flipped elsewhere. So Kobe Foreman taking his visits. We'll see where things stand after all of those get complete, but SMU sits in a good spot for him as well. The on-3 RPM remains strong for the Mustangs there. Let's touch on one other official visitor that SMU has been on for quite some time, and that is Kamorian Morgan. And the rest of the guys I did drop recruiting intel at ontheponyexpress.com. You can also gift a subscription to On the Pony Express if you're a member, or if you just want to gift it. You go to the site and you can find the information there on how to gift a subscription. It's on3.com/teams/SMU-Mustang/gift. So you can run that back on the podcast if you're really interested there. But Kamorian Morgan, 4-star prospect, top 150 overall prospect, top 20 edge nationally on the On3 industry ranking. You see SMU edging out Baylor and Texas A&M on the On3 recruiting prediction machine. I don't think I put a prediction in. If I did, it was really early as somebody that could land with the Mustangs, and just because he had been to campus so many times. And I didn't end up putting one in, but this has become a battle. And Kamorian Morgan has been recruited by SMU for quite some time, and I can tell you they want him on board. He's been pretty quiet in terms of his recruitment, but will head to Baylor this weekend and then go to Texas A&M the weekend after that. He's been to Arizona State for an official visit, and I'm intrigued to see if SMU gets him on board. This would be a major statement in the Dallas area to get him on board. He's been back to College Station earlier this summer as well for an unofficial visit. So that is something to keep an eye on there. The Aggies, if they press for him, are probably sitting in the best spot, but you never know. He's been so quiet. He's been keeping things close to the vest that maybe this is one that SMU ultimately ends up landing out of Dallas South Oak Cliff. He transferred there from Red Oak in the offseason, and so he was on campus. We'll be keeping an eye on this one, of course. He's such a high-profile guy in Dallas, but I'm not ready to sit here and say just yet that SMU is going to land him. We'll have to see how the dust settles from some of these official visits for Kamorian Morgan. So SMU is, as of now, done with official visits. They are in the middle of team workouts. The coaches have the players back on campus. They have some of the newcomers on campus and are working out with them. Coach Grizz taking the reins on all of that right now. And this is the fun time of year where we get to maybe listen to some of our sources and let us know who's standing out, who's catching the eye. So again, going to drop more intel on how guys are looking in off-season workouts. So be sure to be at ontheponyexpress.com. Before we finish up with a few more notes on the team, got to remind you guys to reach out to StatusJet. StatusJet.com. They can get you guys covered for your summer travel. If you want to take a last-minute trip, that's the great thing about StatusJet. Again, mention code PonyUpACC for that discount. But they can plan your trip quickly. If you had travel plans fall through, if you had your travel arrangements fall through but still want to get that trip on the books, StatusJet can help you plan the most perfect business trip, family trip, friends trip. They can work with you to pick a destination that you would absolutely love. And that's why I always tell people to talk to StatusJet. Their attention to detail is second to none. They can absolutely take care of all your questions, help you fly into the right spot. So it's a quick little trip over to wherever you're going. And that is why StatusJet is a proud partner of SMU Athletics and ontheponyexpress.com. They love helping out the Mustang fans out there get wherever they want to go, doing it safely, quickly, and with a level of luxury that you'd expect. SMU does have their team back on campus, and SMU basketball is getting its team back on campus, and you're seeing some of the guys start to work out as well. And the SMU basketball team still has that last roster spot remaining. I can tell you guys there's a lot of reports about Coleman Hawkins, the former Illinois big man, trying to find his next destination. Kansas State, LSU, all sorts of programs have been linked to him right now. He's a highly touted transfer. There's no question about it. He was all Big Ten third team. Was expected to go to Louisville and then did not end up making that trip. He's supposed to visit LSU. He's the number one available player in the portal right now per on three. Average 12 points, 6 rebounds, 2.7 assists per game. I don't think SMU ends up really turning up the heat there. I think we're seeing some programs that are going to try and find a way to fit him in. But realistically, I've heard the NIL expenses on that one are outrageous, and the market is dried up, and it is certainly competitive to the point that you almost, and I've heard some of this with football too, you almost look at it and you're like, this is insane. This is going to mess with team chemistry if we bring in a guy who everybody knows is going to be making that level of bank. Let's not do that. And SMU does have other options out there. We'll talk about them on the board when I'm able to. It is kind of high stakes when it comes to the remaining basketball prospects out there for the transfer portal. So keep an eye out for that when I'm able to share. And then they're hosting, I've heard, 8 unofficial visitors in the coming week or so. So that'll be a big week for Andy Enfield and his staff. But did want to touch on that, trying to get out to a practice to watch the guys go to work, see some of these newcomers for SMU basketball. Hopefully next week before I get out of town for a little, not vacation, but vacation, hanging out and just working from various spots with the family for kind of the 4th of July week and things like that. So when it comes to SMU football, though, the team is back on campus and working out with Sean Griswold and talking with some various sources. The offensive line is going to be really interesting. And the reason why I say that is we talked about the spring. We talked about Justin Osborne stepping up at center and being a guy that can be a all-conference player in the ACC at that position. Just his athleticism, his experience. He's played all over the offensive line for SMU. And this is kind of the question for Garen Justice is, do you stick him back at maybe a right guard, or do you kick him out to tackle if you're not sold on a Savion Byrd? Well, he's going to stick at center from what I hear. He's been tremendous in summer workouts. He looks the part. He has since the spring. And I think he's poised to have a monster final season on the hilltop. But the reason why he can stick at center is because they were able to bring in some depth pieces for the interior. Paris Patterson from Arkansas, Kayshawn Sapp, who had a cup of coffee at East Carolina after transferring there from Florida State. Those guys can impact the quality of depth along the interior, but it's Andrew Chamblee, the Arkansas transfer, who's coming in this summer, and he really looks the part when it comes to how he moves around and how he fits in athletically for SMU on this team. And so you'll see PJ Williams try to hold him off, Savion Byrd try to hold him off on the edge spots, and then whoever, quote unquote, loses that battle will be that swing tackle that SMU really likes to play out there in the offensive line. They like rotating guys in. And so those are a couple notes for you guys on the offensive line. That group is always fun to watch. Garen Justice does a really nice job for SMU tinkering with some of the lineups and, again, keeping us guessing a little bit in spring ball. But it seems like Justin Osborne has really solidified himself as an even bigger leader from that for that group like he has been. And he's been one of the most reliable guys. He's been SMU's best offensive line in the last 2 years now. He's a stud in the middle. And as Logan Parr gets back into the fold in fall camp, or right around the beginning of the season off of his injury, that offensive line has a chance to maybe hit its stride right around conference play. Of course, SMU's hoping by that TCU BYU matchup dates, but that is a group that has the depth to be stronger, and they feel like they really hit the nail on the head when it comes to getting Andrew Chamblee, winning that big recruiting battle out of the transfer portal for the all-SEC freshman. So with that, guys, a few notes. Hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. If we get any news this week, maybe we'll hit another podcast, hoping to get you guys another one this week, but we'll see. Everything right now, as far as time goes, is getting our subscribers at ontheponyexpress.com hooked up with all the intel, and the news just doesn't stop between the position breakdowns that Jordan Hoffinitz is doing, Kevin Lonnquist doing his breakdowns on his weekend column. What was he thinking? We've got all sorts of coverage continuing to roll in day after day at ontheponyexpress.com. So I encourage you to jump on board now for just $1 for your first 2 months with code SMU1. So hope you guys enjoyed this edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody. Follow us on your socials on X at SMU on3 and on Instagram at on3SMU. And keep it locked to ontheponyexpress.com for more coverage.